Alright, close you down. Oh, fine, fine. Look at this. We're already recording without my permission. Right, just moving a few things out of the way. So, oh yeah, right. I need something that's over here. I need a strap, because what we're here for now is a beautiful looking new guitar. Here it is. It is the Harley Benton something or other. Terrible. This is the VT series. Yes, this is very nice. I've forgotten the name of it, by the way. I bet it isn't going to tell me right here and now. Oh god, no, it doesn't tell me. But anyway, it's one of their nice ones, typical. It's about 170 quid's worth, this one, and it comes equipped with Wilkinson pickups, push-pull pots for coil tapping, which I've never really heard on one. I've never heard two on one thing. Everything you'd expect of a Harley Benton, which is basically a nice solid body, quite a nice finish. No surprises anywhere. Plastic jack sockety thing. Confidence inspiring neck joint, rosewood fingerboard, which actually wasn't always the case. There was a period, or at least a batch that I saw, where the fingerboard was painted another kind of lighter wood that was painted a horrible dark, and it was always inevitable it was going to wear off. And we've got a sort of non-copyright infringing headstock here, which is quite nice looking, with a bit of its own sort of design at the end, a bit of mother of pearl foil inlay by the looks of it, or foil, not inlay, and some quite sharpish, square looking vintage Clousson style tuners, and a very plasticky, plackety pick guard, which I always prefer them without it, but this is about 170 quid at most. It's kind of top of the range, or near the top of their range, and it's quite nice looking. The thing that I was interested in is with this one is to decide how much has changed actually over the last couple of years, because I bought one similar to this, a gold top version, a couple of years ago, and I had to do, it's one of the very early setups actually, but I had to do a whole lot of fret leveling, fret finishing, and action adjustments, including the nut. And judging by this straight away, first impression out of the box is it's playable. The frets aren't as rough as they were on the gold top that I had, but they're still scratchy. They don't feel smooth. They don't feel that smooth at all, especially these higher ones. So that's not fantastic, but the thing that struck me as soon as I looked down this end of the neck, my eye was drawn to a kind of dark shadow underneath this fret. Looking closer at it, I can see that it in fact isn't sitting down properly in its slot, so who knows what's wrong with that, but it's not bedded properly. It doesn't affect the guitar's playing at this action, because the action itself is quite high. But what it does mean is that, for example, if I fret on the second fret here and look at the gap here, it's absolutely tiny. If I fret on the first fret and look at the gap here, it's quite big. And that's because this one is higher. If I take this action right down to about a 0.2, it's still actually going to be, or 0.3, sorry, of a mil. It's still going to feel quite unrepresentatively hard, much harder to play here, because actually its true action is not 0.3. It's 0.3 over this first fret, but it actually opens up to about 0.5 over the next one because of the difference between the two. So my feeling about this guitar is that yes, you could play it straight off, which I'm just going to plug in the amp and see what sort of noise it makes, because I haven't heard it yet. And then, but in terms of action, I'm going to have a look and see whether this fret will actually press down and stick further down with super glue. If it's a problem that the nut slot isn't cut correctly, then we may be stuck with nothing to do about it. And you know, the question then is, you always look at these things and you go, well, should I be sending it back before I try to do anything? And it's taken 4 weeks for this guitar to come. It was on back order, that kind of thing, so it took forever. And honestly, do I want to go through the whole process of returning and waiting for another one possibly to come through? And this is kind of annoying, this piece of thing tied onto the, we'll take that off later. Yeah, so I don't think I want to wait forever to get another version back, but we'll see what kinds of problems it presents us with. It is playable, like I said, without it. I haven't heard it play through and out yet. I'm not going to play it loud because all the neighbours are present and correct. So just pull up a plectrum. A plectrum, I say. Come on, give me a plectrum. Grey one will do. Let's have a listen. Single coils, how strange. Can I tell the difference? I mean, these strings weren't stretched either. Coils on, should get more of a stratty twang in the middle, which is quite interesting to get. Yeah, it's quite a little tonal difference. But yeah, we got an action down here of something or other, which is quite high, and I haven't measured it yet, which I will do right now-ish, if I can see where things have gone. Alright, so action down at the last fret is pretty much on, it's just under 2.5, so about 1 millimetre too high. And then we look on the top side, and again it's just under 2.5, so it's pretty much exactly the same. So straight away, for the sake, let's have a look, how are these things sitting? Ooh, yay. Well, just looking at this, the neither of the two bushes are fully in, but I think that's because of the contour of the, it's difficult, you won't get them to sit perfectly in because of the shape of the top. But yeah, let's wind a couple of squeaky millimeters. Nice feedbacky. This has been put up quite high, so I'm suspecting it's going to be masking some dodgy frets. Right, we're right down to 1 millimeter there and just about 1 millimeter there, but let's start with that. Okay. What is going on? Alright, well first of all that's straight on top of the pickup, so that's got to be adjusted. So the pickup's cranked right up to meet the strings, and so let's take it down a bit to get it out of the way of the strings. I thought I'd start by doing it the right way around. So what's the odds that we've got uneven frets? Okay, I'll do for now. That's why. Swines. Yeah. Bend those notes, baby. Sorry, a bit on the trebly side. It's quite sharp, these pickups. So, first of all, exactly as I suspected. Unfortunately, this is just a mouthful of uneven frets. Now let me just snag on this capo and let's have a look just roughly what the amount of relief is in here. About 0.2.5. A little bit more actually, 0.3, so a bit too much for my liking. But again, they may well have, I suspect they may have opened that up as well to try and overcome the shitty frets. Okay, so well, there's only one way around that, as we know, and that is to level these frets. And while we're at the job, the question, bit of a challenge this one, because normally to level the frets I would get the action both ends right, and the first thing that would involve doing is obviously setting the action here, irrespective of whether we can play the notes. That doesn't matter, we'll force the guitar to do that. But I can't really do an adjustment here without getting the strings off and having a kind of a squeeze of this baby and see if a bit of super glue in there is going to hold it down any further. It looks at the end like it's pressed in at that end, a little bit proud at this end, or a little gap. I can sort of pull a fingernail into it. And that is a pretty, I mean, for 1mm action, just over 1mm, which isn't, that's just over, it's about 1.2. That's not unusually low action for a Les Paul copy. That is seriously out of. So it's certain frets that are high, and I can probably see them judging by the kind of amount of black line or the gap. So whether these all need a squeeze through, the difficulty here of course is that this is a set neck, therefore it's difficult to get access to these. Certainly almost impossible to get access with the press. Thankfully this one at this end is the main problem. When you have a set of relatively uneven frets on a guitar like this, rather than try hammering frets or squeezing them or whatever, since they're already glued in place, my preference is to use the fret leveling process to sort out any highs or lows rather than trying to push them in any further. It doesn't apply exactly. I could do the same to this one, by the way. I could just knock the nut off to make it easier. Knock the nut off, work this one over and treat it like it's just a high fret. So and I might be tempted to do that if it's solidly glued in place. The last thing I want to do is break any seals and push it physically into a hole. It may also be that there is no room to get it in there. That slot might have grunge in it or something. So if that was the case and I can't do anything about that, then I need to treat that as a high fret and level it. Since I'm going to need to level these frets anyway, that's sort of taken that decision out of my hands a little bit. But this one will need. The reason I suggest taking the nut off is to get a bit of a better run at it, but it's not even strictly necessary to take the nut off. But the problem I've got is is setting the first fret action in order to do the levelling, because I need to take some of that off. Now I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to not worry about how it plays for now. I know that it plays. What I think I'm going to do is I'm going to take these strings off temporarily, have a look at the state of this nut, see if I can press this one further in easily. If it can, we'll do that. If not, then I'll reconsider and consider how I'm going to level it. I might actually knock the nut off and level it with a leveling beam first, and then do precision one afterwards. So anyway, the point about this, I suppose, is that on one hand that guitar was playable out of the box on paper, and as a newcomer, if it was your first guitar or something, you'd be probably very happy with it, and you know, it looks fantastic, nice weight to it and everything, and it looks a quality build. But the reality is, you might play it for a couple of months, get used to it, and then the horror would hit you the minute you tried to lower the action, and suddenly you'd be in a world of misery because you couldn't play it. It just wouldn't be playable. It just doesn't work at any lower action, and that's why it's been set. So the question of whether it's a quality control miss, or whether there's a bit of cynicism in there, that they've set the thing. They've set the thing so that it will play and they can ship it out the door, and that's what pisses me off about guitar makers in that respect. It isn't a good setup. It isn't a guitar. Not only isn't it well set up, it's not possible to set it up well without doing considerable amount of work to it. And that work, if somebody was paying for it, that work would be, well, we're looking at 75 to 100 quid worth of time and effort to spend on this. So that's the cynicism, I'm afraid. That's what annoys me a bit about it. It's not really necessary. Okay, so just to get cracking on this, there's no point doing anything else right now until I've taken these strings off, get them out of the way, and we'll have a look at the we're going to replace the strings anyway. It says it's D'Addario, which is, it's fine. If they're still in good shape, I'll use them, but if not, it's fine to replace them. I may also stress them out quite a bit in the setting this up, so it's probably going to realistically end up being better to replace them. I'm just looking here. Oh no, it's okay. I thought it was a scratch. Yeah, so we've got what is a really cheap plastic nut as well, unfortunately, which is a shame. Again, it's going to be difficult to work, and that's the annoyance about plastic. I had my neighbour's boy came over yesterday with his first guitar, an acoustic guitar, a Falcon, actually made by John Hornby Skews. Actually, I noticed. I didn't know that, but he came over to have. He'd broken a string and he's just started playing. So what I noticed straight away was that the guitar was awful set up, and I just can't bear a youngster having a guitar that's going to put them off learning far more than it's going to encourage them. So anyway, I started setting it up for him, and what actually happened was very quickly discovered that the nut was the softest plastic you could imagine, and so that had to come out quickly and get thrown away. So replaced it with bone, but it was, it's just, this is horrible. I mean, it does the job, but makes cutting the playing action for me very, very difficult. It just doesn't respond in a dependable way. And working on Clayton's acoustic, very quickly overcut one of the strings because one of the slots, because the strings don't sit. The plastic is sort of furry almost, and the strings don't sit properly in it until you tension them up, and then suddenly they drop back in. Okay, I don't know how well. It's got quite a good focus, this device, but I think it's still too subtle to see. But there is quite a gap under here, which means it's raised up. In fact, there is a bit of a gap under a lot of them, but it's particularly heavy on that one. But I think you know, this observation that there's a space under a lot of them is the cause of the inability to bend. So it is a bit ropey, actually, this fretting. Just the seating of the frets doesn't look strong. Now sometimes when I'm refretting the guitar, I will have the same thing happen. You know, you won't always get a good well-suited frets, but the point is that's why you level straight afterwards, because that's the only way you're going to make the guitar play properly. Then my question here is, since I know they're all uneven, they're all evil, uneven. My question is, which is the best way to take care of that? Oh, Lordy. Take care of that single one, as well as the other ones, but perhaps I've got to bear in mind that single one at the end is the problematic one. I'll just check the radius on this. I assume it's a 12, but you never know. Yep, 12s, 12s, 12s. God, these frets don't look very appealing to me. Ew. Don't like them. So that's a weakness, and then this nut. So okay, let's get a straight neck first and do radius block level. Okay, so get the thing the right way around, and probably on the wrong size. Let's have a look. That's interesting, that. It's not what I'd expect. Okay, that's because with the strings off, this is now relaxed into a concave position. At least that was telling me the truth. So let's get this, and we'll put the tiniest bit of clockwiseness into it to hopefully flatten it. And this is just for the time being. Everything's still running on here? Yeah, we're still working. Okay, and I'm just gonna look at it visually. That's gone quite a bit of. Sorry, I don't need to go I need to go the opposite way. Duh. I always do this. People often watch this and go, "You moron! It's the other way." Yes, it is the other way. Can't do any harm. That's the nice thing. You know, the only way you're going to harm your truss rod is if you crank it with both hands and a lever. Yeah, so I don't know if we can hear the. Oh, actually, you know what? I'm seeing there's glue spilt here. Somebody struggled with this one already. Little buggers, aren't they? Let's get a shot of this. Not good. Benton. Let's see if I can capture the little shine. Oh, stop it. There's an angle. There it is. Yeah, so I think they've already had a go at seating this better. Now, there's a couple of things. There's lots of things we can do, really. One, we can level it and treat it as a high fret. Well, first of all, we can try and press it down. Secondly, we can level it as if it was an ultra high fret, which it is, assuming that it's strongly bedded and glued, which I suspect it is, even if it's not ideal. Or the alternative is we could pull it out and refret it, and in the doing so we could then try and clean out the slot to take the new fret. The only difference there is we have to do our best to match up the fret wire, but actually getting it exactly right isn't the most important thing in the world. I think it's a jumbo fret wire anyway. It wouldn't be far off the mark. So let's think about that as an option. That's a little bit wider actually. Let's look at a medium. Sorry to take a little bit of time, but this is the sort of thing you end up having to do when you're facing weirdnesses. What have we got? Loads of bits over here. I don't know what the gauges are. Tends to be mostly jumbo stuff. all the leftover bits anyway. Oh, that's not so bad. Okay, that's possible. Let's just get this straightened out. Actually, we won't. We'll do it by hand, this one. You can do it. It's good to have a machine, but you can also do it by hand. I'm just going to chop this off. A bit wasteful, but I'm going to have myself a chunk ready. I'll overcut it because I don't want to get the gnarled bit into the proceedings. Okay. So here I have a nicely cut piece of 12 in case I want to try, in case I feel I have to replace this. This is probably a little bit higher as well than this stuff, but well, we'll see. Okay, so the first plan of action would be, let's just have a look a minute. While we're at it, it may just make sense to replace this nut with something decent. Okay, we have a tusk nut there, a little bit narrower, but the spacings are identical. Tusky, that's another is a graphite one, and that's quite nice looking. And again, these spacings are the same. Only question about this one, sorry to take such time now, is how high is it? Fraction lower than that. Well, we can shim it. So one of these, one or other of these two. There's another one. This is a solid plastic one. At least it's kind of hard plastic. Again, spacing's good. Just a fraction narrow. I've got a few blanks as well, which I could always use if I wanted to. I think that one's already been cut fairly low. Quite nice width. Let's stick with the two I've pulled out. It may just make things easier if I have to take this off. How well is it fixed on? I can hear it separating. It's not, at least it's not sort of, it's not fixed into any nice lacquer or anything like that. It's just, it's raw plastic. Raw plastic. Okay, let's just double check the straightness with the right side. Get the right end. That's got to be that way around, which is why it was that way around. Yeah, plonker. Let's just have a quick look. Okay, that's almost spot on. It's just slightly raised over the inlays, but that's what you'd expect. Just double check it. It's pretty much flat. Okay, so we're going to have a go at squishing that down, even though it's already been done. And for that, to that end, I'm going to bring it into action temporarily. The old fret press. Just moving a few things around to get it right. Not much room in here, as you guys know, so it's a lot of pushing and shoving. So, going to have a press with a little bit of glue. I've got some glue remover anyway, so I can always debond it. In fact, I've got gallons of debond, which is quite fun. I've got thin super glue, and somewhere down here I've got a billion micro pipettes for the purpose of doing little bits of delicate super glue. Okay, so I'll need a 12-inch caul in the machine. I'll need a, sorry, not a caul, an insert. I'll need I'll need my neck caul, which is the bit that holds the neck up, supports the neck whilst using the press. A little bit tricky to use now with the guitar. I don't know how well you'll be able to see this, but it's a little bit of manipulation to go along now, and I'll usually do it with some of these and a cloth. So the idea is to raise up the body, and just get it flat in line so it's horizontal. Right, that's a little bit too high, so we start with it a little bit under, and then we'll bring this whole thing backwards, keeping an eye on both ends. So the difficulty is, well, not difficulty, but we've got to line it up so that we've got a nice solid go at this fret, and that requires a bit of turning on the spot, and then turning the other way, and then bringing it out this way. Yeah, it's sort of almost there. Okay, so actually it doesn't, it's only wood here, so it's wood on lacquer, that's okay. Alright, so I don't know how well you can see this now. So I've got the bad fret lined up. Because I'm going to need to use a fair bit of force, I'm going to clamp down this this unit here, which holds the whatchamacallit, and that just allows me to pull it down a bit harder without it falling off. Okay, so I'm going to stand by with a couple of things. I have some paper. There's no point, believe it or not, there's no point putting loads of masking tape over this, because if any of the super glue spills, it wicks its way under the masking tape anyway, and it actually spreads further while it's wicking like that than if it's just loose on the surface. So I prefer to see it loose on the surface and attack it that way. So I've got my my glue. Now this is I've broken the top off this. These containers, they have a lot of stuff in them. They cost about 10 quid, but the top always gets gummed up, as it has again. And what you really want to be able to do is to open it up and just use the micro pipettes, and then put the top back on it. So this becomes, this becomes the tool. Okay, so you can just pick up a very small amount, or as much as little as you need, and it also, under gravity, it suspends. So it's slightly tricky, but I'm just now going to go along this edge of this fret and just squirt a little bit. To put this out of the way, I'm going to get in there with my whatchamacallit, and that's now lifted the guitar a little bit, so I'll just support it a little bit with my hand. So, sorry, I'm holding it up basically. Now I don't think this is really getting it much further down in the slot. What I also would like to do, while it's there, I'm just going to put another one underneath here, which is what it really needs. Okay, just lifting it a tiny bit. Then get me a. Okay, I'm out of string. Just when I needed it, I've not got any spare string. I really needed this piece of string quickly. Okay, so the point being is I want to tie this, put this under pressure and tie it around this screw here. So that's just going to, with a bit of luck, hold the whole thing just on for a little bit. always the way. There's always a bloody knot in the way of things. Okay, so that is just holding that thing in place, and we can support it with a little tiny bit more something which I'm going to do with a tiny bit of cloth, except it doesn't want to go. Okay, that's fine. Okay, so that will hold it for a couple of minutes under pressure. We'll see. The best way to tell will be at the point of putting strings back on and looking at how high that gap is. But before I do that, and having done the glue bit, also I will probably need to go on the outside of that still with the debonder. But yeah, I'll basically clean it up with the debonder and then set up all the frets for a basic level in the flat neck position, and that's going to do the heavy lifting work, if you like, of the fret leveling. And it made the 12-inch block, which is under there. Okay, this really shouldn't take for too long, so I'm going to take it off and see. I always mean to set up a more efficient system than this, but I sort of always think about it too late in the day when I'm just about to do it. So it gets there. It's a bit inventive. Some folks suggested some really cool webbing strap ratchety things, which would have been a good idea actually. But do it oldie-fashionedly. Right, so off then with that. Lift the guitar out of the way. I'm still going to come back to the leftover glue, but just put that safely out of the way. Clean everything, or reshape everything so you can carry on. Keep the 12 block, which is what we're going to need, and we don't need that. Nope. So yeah, I suppose this answers the question, you know, is this guitar playable straight out the box? And I think the real simple answer is yes and no, depending on your expectations. For me it's a no, because I just don't think I could live with not having any action adjustment. Okay, so I've got some spare glue floating about there. I don't think, well actually, you know what, it has made a difference. It's improved it a little bit. I don't really want to go over every single fret in this set and work it, press it and glue it. I'll be here forever, so I'm going to go ahead and cut the top off this. I'm going to go ahead and level, given what we've got, and it will take into account obviously that some of these frets are still not fantastic, so they will sort of register as high frets, and they will of course come off. Yeah, some of the metal will come off. Sorry, you can't see. I'm just putting a bit of debonder on here, and I'm going to try and scrape off this excess. Probably need a bit of plastic to do it, or a bit of sharp-edged bone or something. There we go. Just sort of steamrollering it off. Yeah, so you know, I don't mean to be unkind to Harley Benton, but you know, if you really are stuck with one one playing action because the frets are basically unworkable. You know, you can't make any adjustment at all. Then I don't think that does qualify as well set up, or even actually I don't even think that qualifies as a good quality guitar, to be honest. So, you know, I know there's a couple of folks out there on YouTube who do a lot of really praise Harley Benton a lot, and you know, when I see them sort of take them out of the box and play on them, I don't think they, well, not from what I've seen, they don't sort of line them up like this and assess whether. I've never seen them try to adjust the action and then realise they can't. So maybe it's something, you know, on first sort of look you'd say, well, that's fantastic, I love it, but then on, you know, living with it a bit longer, you've hit the limitations and you can't make adjustments to the action, and reality starts to kind of kick in at that point. So it's not as good as it looks from the outside. Okay, I'm going to stop with that. It's pretty much cleaned up. I've done as much squishing and gluing as I can possibly do. Anything, if it's not even or if it's not improved yet, then we're just going to have to take care of it. What have you got? Yum yum. She's got a shrew, or a vole. Dead one. Okay, so we've got a flat neck, we've got some uneven frets, we know that, and we've got no real choice now other than to get kicked off on the usual process, which is to dish some marker pen onto this, and we're going to take the 12-inch radius block and pretty much give it a once over, and that's going to force a 12-inch radius onto it, whatever the actual radius of the frets are, because remember the radius of the neck might be 12 inches, but by the time the frets go in and maybe sit up in certain places or don't sit perfectly, the actual radius of the frets won't be the same. And the reason you'll know this is as soon as I use this now, what you're going to find is it may not cut where you expect it to cut. So I'm just going to go up and down a couple of times and stop and then look at what it's telling me. So we're touching top of all of that, which isn't bad. It looks like we have leveled that one. That second and third one are showing up as a bit higher, but it's actually hitting all tops of most of them except a few at the top here. So broadly speaking, that tells me that now they are mostly level, but I've had to take a little bit off these in particular, and you can see some dust coming up. Now this is going to slightly change as well when I'm going to stop there. This is going to change when we put it under tension and the neck gets relief in it, so that's why the next bit of levelling looks like a very fine precision. It won't take much, actually, that's the good thing, but using the old banana truss rod tool will allow me to finish that bit off. I mean, a little way of having a look now, if you want to check for extremes of levelness, let's see whether it's really way out, we can use our fret leveling fret rocker tool. Yeah, you see there's still a fair bit of unevenness going on here. Now, is it? What's happened now is this one, amazingly, this one's the high one now, so we've actually squeezed that one, leaving that one high. So there is a bit more work to do at that end to take that one down, unfortunately. So I might as well take care of it now, otherwise we'll just be facing the task with a more delicate tool anyway. So we might as well start with almost level, and we're getting very close to it, but it has taken a fair bit off. The rest of them now showing up now as quite level in this position. As I say, it will change slightly when we, a little bit there, when we put it under pressure, under tension, because the effects of compression on the neck change the way the frets sit. So that's I'm going to call that pretty much quits. It's now almost level. But you can see there are a couple of the problems, and there are a few little spots where it's not right. But brilliant. I've already taken the lid off. I'll use some of that. Just wipe up this dust, which is what I was trying to do. Okay. So, having reduced the first fret height to a workable amount, now I can put these, what do you call it, sacrificial strings back on, and just wipe this up with my foot. Put the strings back on and then set the nut slots. Now the question right here and now is, if I leave this plastic nut on, it's going to give me a load of grief trying to do it. So actually, you know what, since it's my friend's guitar and I don't want him to have a crap plastic nut, Harley Benton, I'm going to do the obvious and just tap that off now. Well, it's like a very, I don't know if it's bone or very hard plastic, but we can either replace it with this tusky one. It's slightly different. Let me just investigate. This could actually be bone, so I may have jumped the gun here, but that's okay. I needed to know. It's hard to get your teeth into it where it stands. So, and if it is bone, I'll stick with it because, quite frankly, it's easier to work even than tusk in my book. Okay, so there's a very, very light fix, so I can just plunk that back on. Hard to tell from looking sometimes, so there you go. I've got to get my teeth onto it, and maybe there's a better test. Maybe it's the sound of something when you plunk it against something, I don't know, but anyway. I guess what you learned there is I can't tell unless I get my teeth into it. Okay, so back into there, back exactly where I want it to be, squish it down, job done. Alright, so I know it's bone, I know it's going to work nicely without any trouble. So we'll go back to the normal routine of things now. Put the strings back on, which are here, put the bridge back on, which is here. So still a fair bit to do, as if you've seen the setups before, you'll know. But at least I'm pleased that we've got the basic level sorted out now. The difficulty with putting strings back on, as you can see, is you end up with a mess of curls and stuff, and it takes a little while to sort them out. But for the sacrificial strings, they don't need massive, you don't have to attach them hugely cleanly or strongly, they just need to be on enough to do the job. So there we go. Which means if you need to cut off the really messy curly ends when you get to the thin ones, you probably have enough room to do that. There's silly little things that you figure out the hard way by having to do hundreds of things like this, rebending strings to get them to work again. I mean, it's when I set up anything, I always sacrifice a set of strings anyway, and the strings that are on there are always, the purpose is really just to take the sort of the brunt of the undoing, doing up, moving around, doing the pulling in and out of the slots and so on, so that they're going to be handled a lot, and they're going to be stretched and weakened a lot in the places they're likely to be weakest. So it makes real sense that once you've finished manhandling them, that you can string the guitar with new ones, and I'll certainly do that. So yeah, good to find out that it is in fact a bone nut on here. Well, I couldn't tell by looking at it. And also, if it hadn't have been, then I would have replaced it, because I'm finding that if you don't do anything with the nut slots, then the material the bone the nut is made of isn't really such a big deal, because plastic works okay. Some people would say doesn't transmit the whatever, vibrations of the guitar, as well as substances like bone or whatever that stuff is, tusk-y stuff or graphite. But the point is, it's adequate, it'll work. It's just, when it comes down to, the real decision for me is about the ease of working it and getting it to do what you want. And since the height of the nut slots is so important to me, or the accuracy of the nut slots is so important, it makes real sense for me to just always switch out and go for bone, which is why I sort of get ready to do it. If I suspect for 1 second it's not bone, I'm ready to go. Now, a little hint is when you're putting strings back on and they've already been on once, watch out for the ends, because they almost invariably bend downwards, and their tendency is to want to scrape a nice little circle in your pristine looking lacquer. It's just, I don't know why, they seem to just do it. So to begin with, you need to guide those little sharp ends up. Doesn't apply when you're putting new strings on, just when you've taken off the old ones and put them back on. Okay, so a number of people have asked in YouTube videos, why do I bother doing fret leveling the way I currently do it with the adjustable, tunable device? And the reason is because it allows me, it's a couple of reasons really. One, first of all, it allows me to set the guitar up or level the frets to achieve the action I want, and then stop. So it's a really elegant way of not taking off any more fret metal than is absolutely necessary. And you can see why that's important when you get a nice new guitar, and the last thing you're going to be doing is wasting half of the fret life to get it to play nicely, which unfortunately, Mr. Benton, is kind of what you end up with. That's what the real implication of having your crappy neck that doesn't play is, exactly that we're going to cost. This guitar is going to start out with some of its fret life wasted, courtesy of their quality control, and there's no other way of kind of really tallying up the cost. I'm just taking this off so I cut myself least amount of times. Cat's having a disagreement. Yeah, so the reason I like to do this method is because it allows me to just only take off as much as I need of the frets to make the thing play. Ooh, that wasn't good, that pinged through somewhere. Thus preserving as much as possible of the fret life. And the other reason is because it's more accurate. Somebody nearby is playing some massive speakers. I don't know where it is. Maybe Claire will know. It's a party going on somewhere, but you can really feel it pulsing through the countryside. You can probably hear it actually. Okay, so straight away we've recovered the guitar. We've got the fret clamped down a bit. We've leveled these frets. Now we're getting some notes starting to play. They're not perfect yet, and to be fair, this is a low action that I've started out with. I'm just going to check first of all how much relief is pulled into the neck from the strings alone, and actually from a flat neck that's quite a bit of relief. So I want to just back off a little bit on this, so I have to use my chart because I never can remember it. Maybe that's why, because I never always use the chart. I want to take it clockwise. I want to tighten the truss rod up to take out some of the bend in the neck. A little tiny 10 degrees movement, if that. Let it sort of take effect. So where are we at? We've got the action we want down here. I now feel like I'm going to be in a position to get the action I want here. Now the interesting thing is I don't quite know what the strings are fitted on here, and I'm going to fit 10s to it. Just feels about right, if I can find them. 20s, 10s, right, I've got quite a few. I can't seem to hold on to anything today. No, everything is falling over. Okay, so some 10s. Now, with the 10s, I know I can read off here what the different gauges are. So the interesting thing is I'm going to cut the nut slots for, at this point I'm going to cut the nut slots for the gauge I'm going to use later on, if you see what I mean. So I'm going to just read them off, and I've got a massive pile of nut files here, and I'm going to pick a set. I'm lucky enough, I'm going to pick a set that matches this, only slightly bigger. So for example, 10s, if I go 13, that gives me plenty of room. Then if I go 13, I want to go something like 16, not 13 there, 16 or 17, let's see what that is. Let's try something else. 9, we're nowhere near that. 11s, no thanks. 36, 17, we've got already. 16, let's go 16. Alright, then we're going 17, let's go 20 or thereabouts. Don't think we've got anything that's quite 20. 20, 18. We can go at the same amount as the actual reading. It just means you have to wiggle it a bit to give it some room. Okay, there's no such thing. I think it looks like we're missing or short of something. 17 looks to be about out there on its own. So we're going at the same width or same gauge there. We just have to make sure we wiggle that one to give it a bit more room, or use sandpaper. 26 we've got, but we want something like a 28 more like. So let's find if we got something like that. It's a bit fiddly this, but it changes every time. Oh, Morris, you scared me. Come on, what have we got? Oh yeah, 28. Let's go 26 to 28. And we're going 36. Morris is going to come the hard way. 36. There's a 36 in case we don't find anything else. There's another 36. 42, no. 17, 11, 46, 32. That's too small. Okay. We'll go with a 36, which again, like the 17, we have to wiggle. And then we got a 46 to a 48. Okay. Hello, boy. Mwah. Say hello to your folks. I haven't seen you for a while. Oh, okay. This is exactly what I wanted him to do. Rub his sticky nose up against the camera. Alright, so I know that the 28, 17 and the 30, hey, careful now, 17 and the 36 are on size, the rest are slightly over, which makes them, just makes it a little easier. Okay, can I invite you to go down and explore the world out there? Okay, so let's get this thing going. I'm just going to pull off the bottom two. I'm going to get my, whatever that thing is called, don't know. I'm going to go for a 0.3 action on the metric side. 0.3. We're almost there actually now on this one, which is not bad. Yeah, so we won't have too much to do. 0.3. I'll hike it out of the way, and we're starting with the 28, which I think I said, oh no, 28's a bit over the 26. I can really hear that bass pounding. Right on the mark. Stop on that one and bring this one back up. I'm going to bring them up to tune. Bring them up as close as you can to tune so they sit properly in the bottom of the slot. Okay, we're going 36, which I think I said is the same. So we're going to wiggle this a bit. Let's measure it first, don't rush. Okay, a bit high. So I'm looking for how much needs to, how much further down we need to go, and then working off that. and I'm tilting backwards as I go, taking a little bit at a time and checking, keep on rechecking, and more checking and take it slow. Not far off each other actually, although to be on the strict side this one's a bit further to go. What have I really got this at? This isn't, I'm a bit under, I've chickened out, that's what I've done. Let's just go back one. I've just slightly chickened out, a bit too quick. Don't want to do that, I want to make sure it's right. If I sort of wimp out with one, it means everything else has to go higher. And that just means we don't get the really nice action that we can get out of it. And why stop early when you can, there we go, when you can really make it play as well as it can. So the 28 out the way, back on the 36, a bit more to do then. .36 being the same size, almost there, a little bit more. So it's very, very slight the amount of work we have to do here, but it is quite precise. You can hear that bass thumping. Okay, starts to zing, that's us on the mark. So next one, the final one is the 48, and that's over the actual size of the gauge we're using. So we kind of just afford to go straight at it. Again, measuring it. And I can already see now that the last two are at the same gauge and they're looking nice and low to the fret. What time is it? It's time for switching off. I'm going to zip off and listen to the radio, but what I'm going to do is set this up for fret leveling and come back and show you when I'm doing that. I'll speak to you in a minute. I've got to listen to the European referendum thing. You can't blame me. I've got to know what to do. Don't know about you guys, but I'm still not entirely 100% decided. And if I can remember when I come back, I'll tell you an experience I had in town today, which was slightly demoralising, actually. Okay, we're almost there. Tiny bit more. Yeah, slightly interesting sort of experience whilst listening to or talking to somebody from the Leave campaign. But anyway, I'll get off and listen to any questions stuff and back with you shortly. I ducked out and cheated. I've already done the fret leveling. I just had to get into the Euro exit, stay, remain, leave discussion on Radio 4 because I'm trying to work out what the hell is going on or what the right thing to do is. And anyway, so not going to be hugely informative for you, Dave. If you ever get to see this, then you'll hopefully I'll show you the process in person one of these days. You come over and go through it. But for those, if you want to see how I level the frets on this guitar, then you saw the first bit where I did general level, and then the precision fret level that I just did there. It's shown on any of my recent videos. The same process applies. On this guitar, actually, I had to do a lot of work to get this to play at the action I want, and I have to say it's not good. It's not great. And it's what you get underneath the good looks of this Harley Benton brand. Certainly it is with the two that not two actually, I've bought 3, possibly more, yeah, at least 3 set up proper from the shop, Harley Bentons, and I've had to work hard on all 3 of them to make them playable. Like I said earlier on, you know, if by playable you mean can you just plug it in and hit some chords, yes, they're playable. But if by playable you mean can I get the notes I want out of it and can I adjust the action any way whatsoever, then no, it isn't playable. And the length of time it took me and the amount of material I had to take from the frets to get them level and playing at the action I want is no joke, really. It's not good enough, and the fact that the first fret was high anyway, which kind of made a restriction on everything. So, but even though it took longer, the essence of the process is exactly the same as I normally do. So if you want to see that, go to any of the other videos, or if you've already watched it, you'll know what I do. Anyway, so here we are. After the fret leveling, it's now a matter of masking off the guitar neck so that I can reshape the frets with the fret profiling or fret crowning tool, and then once I've reshaped the frets, get them nice and rounded, then the objective is to polish them out, and again all of that takes time. So basically, you know, this guitar has required a full reloved setup, which, you know, if you were to put a price on it, 100 quid to bring this up to kind of quality playing standard that it should really be at, or not, and that's not to say that many guitars are, but you know, I would like to see guitars at that standard. So it's an extra 100 quid. So you're not really paying 170 for this. You're paying, by the time you get it set up well, you're paying 270. Now at 270, it's still not the worst guitar. It's not a bad guitar, but I would spend the money on a Rally, as you probably would know, but I'd spend the money on a Rally any day, and if you had 200 quid you could get a virtually brand new Rally, and possibly the likelihood is it wouldn't need any setup, almost no setup work at all, possibly a whisker at the first fret action, but that's about it. Certainly if it's a Les Paul copy. If it's any of the other Rallies, they actually do tend to have more fret work required. But anyway, so there we are. I've leveled all the frets in a two-stage process in this case, and now I'm coming up to the bit where all the frets now currently have a flat spot on them where we've actually leveled them out, which is the kind of byproduct of the leveling process. It's an understandable consequence. It's how we level them, by flattening them. So the next part of this process is to take a concave file and use that to round off the flat spots, and do it in a way that doesn't reduce the height of the fret anymore. So that's the really important bit, is that we can reshape it without lowering its height, and if we can do that, then we preserve the relative levelness that we've already achieved, which is what we're aiming for. So I'm just covering up the bulk of the body of the guitar that could come into contact with the sandpaper I'm going to use in a little while. I don't want any of that sandpaper to scratch into the paintwork, even just by chance, so I'm kind of going over the top. Some people on YouTube have said to me, "Dude, do you have to really use all that paper?" And it's like, well, yeah, I do. You might not, but I do. A personal choice, and it only costs a small amount of money to, sorry, mixing noise. It doesn't cost much to use masking tape, but it costs a hell of a lot more if you were trying to refinish the guitar once you'd scraped the hell out of it. Okay, so that's my masking process done. What I'm going to do is I'm going to get my marker pen again, and I'm going to draw marker across the top of all the frets once more, and this time I'm going to use it to guide me to see how my reshaping process is going. And the idea is to cut off the shoulder, if you like, of the flat spot, and come inwards with the tool to the point where we've rounded it off, but we want to leave a very, very fine black line down the middle of the fret. And if we can do that, then it tells us we've rounded it off, but we haven't taken any more off the top. And like I said before, if we don't take any more off the top, then we can be sure that our relative level that we've already achieved stays relatively level. So I think these are pretty much jumbo frets, so I'm going to use the jumbo setting on my tool, and all that I do is I run the tool across the top and stop as soon as it's rounded off the fret. Now some of them will take almost no time at all, and some of them, like the second one here, will take a little bit more, because to level this one I had to flatten it a bit more than the first one. So we just keep working it until we get it as thin a black line as possible, and then stop and move on, and that's all we do. Like I said, the ones that have required the most levelling then require the most rounding off or reprofiling, and some places you have to work more on one part of the fret than another, and then you're done. So I'm just going to do all of this, and once I've done that, then I'm going to, I won't bore you with it, but then I'm going to do a whole set of polishing with a set of different grades of paper. Here, this is my mobile honeymoon booking service. Can you just show me? That's not, well, that looks like 600, yes. So, right, I'm just going to get my bits of sandpaper ready. Ooh, got an 800 in the mix now. Let's try that as well for fun. Introduce more hard work. We don't have enough to do. 4,000 as well. Look at all these grades. Well, let's add a level into it. Why not? 1,200. And then we'll stop there and we'll go. Right. Keep talking to myself. We have got a few choices. We have 1,000, 12, right, 6, 8, 1, 12. Right. Okay. Here's the plan. This is a really boring bit, but I will go offline to do this bit. Right, here's the plan. We're going to go 600. So how many bits of 600? 4 bits of 600. No, we're not going to do that many. Let me get my head around this. We're going to do 2 bits of 600. Then we're going to introduce 2 bits of a new grade called 800. Ooh. Which isn't that one, which is this one. So 2 bits of a new grade called 800, and that will hopefully smooth this down in a more staged manner. Then 2 bits of a thing called 1,000, which again we wouldn't normally do. Sorry, you can't see anything. Wouldn't normally do that. I'm going to change it. See, I'm just evolving. 2 bits of 1,000. Then 2 bits of 1,200. And then we go on to the set of micro meshes, which will be 1,500 through to 12,000, and that is very, very fine, and it will eventually get there. Right, so here we have our polishing schedule. Let's get these little bits out of the way. I don't want anything clanking into the guitar. And I need a rubber block or a foam block to help me on the way. So I'm going to say I will cut this off because you don't want to see me polishing, but it'll take about half an hour, something like that. But this is the important bit. So I've got my complete set of papers here, and the first one I'm going to do by hand, and my aim is just to kind of round off the frets. And I want to treat them all the same, not stopping in one place any more than another. And it's kind of this bit with my fingers, I'm just trying to kind of work off all the marker pen, really. It's the bit where I make sure I've taken all of the big scratches off the top before I move on to the rubber block, and I'm pressing downwards into the frets so that I'm kind of bouncing over them rather than flattening them, so I don't want to introduce any more flat spots, since that's what I'm trying to sort of polish out. So that kind of up and over is the best thing. So you never know, according to that we might be having our honeymoon finally. It's been a long time in the coming. We got married in October last year, as I think some of you might remember, and we've been putting it off until my finances were right, and so on and so on. So it could just about be the right time to zip out, particularly if it's at the price that Claire seems to have found, but I'm a bit concerned that that's too optimistic but hell, I don't know the way they price things. In fact, it would probably end up, if that was the right price, it would be cheaper than we paid for it 6 years ago, which sort of worries me. Unless it's some sort of last minute cancellation that we would be, well, relatively short notice cancellation. Okay, so going to focus a bit on the end. Had a fun thing happen today. I made contact recently with an old friend of mine who was a bass player. Well, we went to school together and we played in a band for a short period of time, and it wasn't a great band by any means. It was a schoolboy thing. We were, I guess it was 1980, 81, something like that. And in our school there were probably a couple of bands, but there was a really good one, and then there was us. And the really good one was really good and played at all the parties and all the sixth form do's and stuff, and became the much loved soundtrack of our school, sort of later school years. And that group was called The Time, and had a couple of their recordings, which over time I think I lost. I think I transferred a kind of studio recording they did. I think I transferred that to iTunes, but any of the other recordings I lost, particularly one where my band played and supported them in playing in a friend's front room, which was a typically studenty school thing to do. Anyway, it was a great day actually, and they played fantastically well, and our band was a kind of a sheer embarrassment. Singing some Beatles songs at a horrible high pitch, which were way above my range. And anyway, so I kind of wasn't too upset when that tape disappeared forever. But just recently, the bass player Steve from that band got back in touch with me through Facebook and announced he had a copy of this tape that I had in fact given him originally. A copy of a copy of a copy. So anyway, he sent this tape back, and in the meantime I went out and bought a Sony Walkman from eBay for about £6 including postage. So armed with my Sony Walkman and the Tascam that's recording now, waited for this tape to arrive, and it came today. And so I rigged up a sort of cable out from the headphone socket into the Tascam, and ended up with a couple of files and stitched them together, and had reconstituted that gig again in mono, glorious mono. It was never in anything else, but just amazing to put it back out through SoundCloud to the original people who were in that band to listen to. And by coincidence, the bass player of that band, Martin, was happened to be driving to Coventry and was going past the house, in fact, where we recorded it, where we lived at the time, and so he took a selfie of himself whilst listening. He was listening to it, driving his son over to Coventry, and while they both listened to this in the car, he then got out of the car and took a selfie at this location where we'd recorded it. So it's just really amazing how the digital world works. When I made the recording, I cut off our appearance at the start because we were pretty lousy. So the fun part of that is that when it was really amazing to hear me cranging away on this old guitar, which was in fact a copy of this one, not the same guitar, but it was the Satellite 65T, this horrible twin single coil thing that I'm sort of putting back together again. I bought one really cheap and decided to make it play properly, just for old time's sake, so a real nostalgia trip. So it's really interesting to hear the strains of that crappy guitar playing out on this tape this morning. It was just a horrible guitar, and in fact I've refretted this one, but even the neck, it's not even rosewood, it's some sort of white wood that is just coming apart, and the colour comes off it. So I'm refretting it and I'm going to make it play like it never did before, but it was awful to play. I mean, it had such a terrible action and everything. And actually, looking at this now, it's I don't know whether it's all cracking or it's just it's grim. Ooh, satellite. Short scale, slightly short scale, but just weedy, all round weedy. And how well you can see, but the pickups up here, the scratch plate is got this horrible square pickups on it, and off on switch for the pickups. Like, you know, you can either have one or the other or both. It's like an early Brian May, no out of phase or anything, but a really horrible toy guitar. But anyway, just a fun day of you know, going back through memory lane. Whether or not my recording of our band will ever surface is another thing, because it really was crap. Anyway, I'm going to go off, listen to some radio, get all of this done. 20 minutes from now, I'll come back and we'll restring this baby and get it playing. See you in a minute. Okay, so I have restrung it, and the next thing to do when you've restrung is to stretch out those strings, get all the slack out of the strings, and using the thumb and forefinger method. And doing this enough times now, even the other side of the bridge, the other side of the nut, will make sure the guitar stays in tune much quicker, or ensures it'll get rid of the slack and the guitar will be more stable in tuning from that point onwards. So you really can't do it enough. If you take half an hour even to stretch it out now, including some string bends and whatever you need to do, settle the tuning down, or basically to get all the slack out of the strings. It'll pay dividends down the line, because your guitar will reward you by staying in tune, and that feels instantly better. One of the things people don't think of so much is how much an in-tune guitar adds to their experience of playing guitar. And it's only when you come across one that just somehow seems to stay in tune very well, it stands out a mile, and you think, wow, this is great, I want to pick this up again, I want to play this again. And it stays in tune if you take care of the nut slots, and if you take the slack out the strings. Okay, so I'm going to do it another time, and then we'll go back over it with some finger or some note bends. So one of the things you'll see straight away on this is that whereas before we didn't even have notes, we now not only have a really low action, 1.5 millimeters at the last fret, but we've got a low action, really low action, plus we've got bends and all the notes playing cleanly. So that's the benefit of doing that work on it, and there's no way around it. You couldn't get that to play that way without doing this work. And in a way, that's the annoying bit about buying guitars which need this amount of work to set them up. And from my experience, about 90% of them do. Very, very, very few come well enough set up to choose the action you want without having to do any work. I think a couple that I've found are I suppose consistently I've found that you can do it with other Rally Les Paul copies for some strange reason, and also the classic Vibe Telecasters and Strats seem to be really, really good quality and well set up. You hear how little it's detuned now, so we've got most of the slack out. Hearing some pings at the nut there. tells me. Lovely, very easy to play too. Having done that, I'm just going to now flip all these off because I'm going to do a little bit of sandpapering on each of these because basically there's a bit of tightness in the nut there that I want to get rid of, usually on the higher strings, but I'm just going to do it to the others as well just to make sure. And I'm just aiming to sand the side down rather than the bottom. I don't want to go right low down. Just aiming to rub the side down a little bit. And I'm going to do it all the way through. But also when I've done that, then I'm going to put a little bit of graphite into each of the slots as well, so that I can lubricate it, because getting this nut to freely let the strings through is so critical to how it plays. It really makes all the difference. When you've got this kind of the strings going freely through here, then it really does play so well and it stays in tune so well. So I've just widened those out a bit. I'm just going to drop in this graphite dust. It doesn't matter if it spreads everywhere, we'll blow it away afterwards. Get my blower up and blow the stuff away, tidy it up. There'll still be some trapped under there. Now I'm going to do the same for the top three. Now this will be the last time I need to take these strings off and on, but it'll be worth it. That and the stretching will have made this play just right. This will get a little bit tighter as we go up now, because of the nature of the sandpaper and the blade, so I'll probably have to take the blade out of the deal this time and just go with the paper alone and try and get it. It's not quite as easy then to get it to widen the slot, but it's just enough to add a bit of width. Now you remember how all the strings, all the saws, the files I used, they were all bigger than the gauge of the string we're using, and they were about 2 units bigger, whatever, hundredths of an inch, 200th, a tiny amount, but they were all oversized and they're still binding. So that should tell you something, that actually the last thing you want to do is buy a set that matches the gauge you want to use. If anything, you want always slightly bigger. Yep, always slightly bigger, and be prepared to sand out the nut slots as well. Okay, so at this point in time I've basically stretched most of it out, but I've slacked off and wound back on again, so I'm going to expect a bit more slack to be in there, but I'm doing some upward pulls. You have to really be wary that you may well break a string at this point. It's not impossible. And now I'm feeling how smooth this is. Tiny ping there. Oh yeah. Beautiful. I'm very happy with that. I'm going to put the truss rod cover back on because I'm happy with where that is as well, and we're coming very close to the completion of all of this. The only thing remaining is to do the intonation, which is a fairly simple job, and I'm going to use my app to do this, even though it may well incur the wrath of certain watching experts who insist that it can only be done with an expensive oscilloscope style thing. Well, I think they have to remember that setting the intonation actually can be done by ear. It doesn't have to be done by machinery. It helps to have a very precise tuner, there's no doubt about it, but people, and I have in the past, set it by ear. And how you can do that is you need to be able to recognise the pitch of a note and to know whether the note is a whole octave above what you're playing. And if you can tell whether it's sharp or flat of that octave, then you have a sensitive enough ear for pitch to be able to intonate your guitar. So, you know, this sort of blanket absolute certain, you must have this kind of equipment. You mustn't. Somebody with a good ear for music can do it by ear, as simple as that. But I'm going to use a tuner on a what's this thing called? iPhone. I'm going to use the tuner on the iPhone, and I'm just going to get the strap for the guitar, which helps the process wherever I put it. Yeah. Oh yeah. And we need the amp as well, but we also need a screwdriver with a Phillips head, which we've already got lined up. Difficult. You probably need one with a long blade to reach through, a long shaft, if you get what I mean. Totally different guitar. Absolutely. I mean, it's such a shame that Dave didn't get to play this first, because he can't tell the difference between the original guitar. But you just have to take my word for it. The difference is absolutely beyond description. It's a completely different guitar. And of course worth doing, massively worth doing. Okay, so I'm going to tune each string, and you sort of see it, I think, yeah. I'm going to tune each string on the 12th string harmonic, so I need a really clean tone for that. Jazz chorusy sound. And we'll ping the harmonic, and you can see there, the tuner is responding. So I'm going to tune to the harmonic, and then if the string is the correct length for this neck, what happens is the fretted 12th fret will be the same as the pinged harmonic 12th fret. So watch the tuner. Pinged, fretted. That's on. Move straight to the next one. Slightly flat. Got close enough? Close. I'm going to go back and sand that G slot. It's pinging. That was a 17 if you remember, so it's a little tight. That's on. B is pinging as well. It's on. That was nice. And E is pinging. That big bend. That's what all this work has given you. Remember when we started, if you wind back to the beginning of this, we couldn't even play a note up there, let alone bend it. It's just an additional stretch, by the way. But that's amazing. That's how much difference it makes. still stretching out. Do lots of big bends, big bends. Ping. Lovely. Right, just to be precise, sorry, I'm not going to play it much longer because I can't. I'm just going to go and grab some food, but the final thing I'm going to do before that is to just put a little bit of sandpaper onto those, the B and the G and the B, just to get those widened out slightly, and once we've done that it'll be perfect. And I'm very, very pleased with the way that's turned out. But you know, like I said, it's taken quite a bit of work to get it like that. Most of which you didn't see, which was very kind of me to save you the misery. But it is, yeah, I'll be now. It's a lot of work. I mean, that's kind of 3 hours work to get this playing the way it needs to play, it should play. And it's kind of, yeah, well, it is what it is. You have to put the time in to get it right. Unfortunately, there's very few that come ready to go. So I'm just trying to widen these more than anything. I don't really want to go any lower, so I'm trying to avoid hitting the bottom of the slot. It's very difficult with ultra fine sandpaper because you will get to the bottom, and the amount you can actually widen this slot itself is minimal, but it's better than not doing it. Again, we'll probably just add a bit more of the graphite in, and then we'll be done. I'm just going to get something to eat then. But that has gone from unplayable to very, very nice. Kind of, I suppose the Harley Benton was one of the first guitars I did, and it really was, having first of all done my Taylor Baby and sort of learned the basic of what I was doing on that. The Harley Benton was one of the first ones that I then applied it to afterwards, and you know, was thrilled to find out how well it worked. And in fact, I set the Harley Benton Gold Top up, played it for a while, and then ended up selling it after I'd done another kind of precision level. So by the time I sold it, it was as good as this. Gonna stop there, blow the air away, clean up, stop the tape. Thanks for spending time with me. Hope you enjoyed that, hope you learned something. I will see you, stop hissing at me. I'll see you soon for another guitar in the Real Love Guitars workshop. We've got a few oldies to get through, and we've got that lovely old arch top over there, but Dave's coming over on the weekend to pick this up, and I shall enjoy seeing his face when he plays it. So there you go, Real Love Guitars. I'm Sam, see you soon.